Hi, everybody. So I want to talk to you tonight about contact regulation thermography and the alternative to mammograms. There's a couple alternatives, actually. And what I want to do is, first of all, I want to be able to see what everybody's posting. So please let me know that you're here so I can see the post. Because, I'm by myself and I'm trying to figure it out. So anyway, I think I'll do it this way. Oh, no, then you can't see me. Okay, I won't do that. So the contact regulation thermography is a way to assess the body and test the regulation. And it's not just testing your breast, it's actually a full body assessment. So a lot of clients ask me, what's the difference between a thermogram, a regulation thermography? Oh, there we go. The lighting's way better that way. And a picture thermogram. So I want to talk about that for a second because it's super key in regards to what we do here at True Wellness and what the bioregulatory approach is really about, or foundational medicine is what I'm starting to call it, is all about. And when we look at a static picture, so a lot of people do the thermograms where it takes a picture of your breast, right? So it takes a picture of your breast and it then gives you a color scheme of red and blue, and you don't want reds, you want blues. And there's yellows and greens and so forth to tell you about the temperature of the breast. And the temperature of the breast is important because if you have heat, if you have hotness, that can often be indication of inflammation and or tumors. So a lot of people use that. However, my struggle with a thermogram is that it's a static test. And I don't know about you all, but I don't live in a static world. My life, I have to regulate for things that happen all day long. And I don't live in a bubble. Things happen and my body has to compensate for that. So if I'm getting a picture of my breast statically, that tells me how my breasts are right now, but without any stress on the body. So that's all well and good if I lived in that bubble, right? But I don't. So the reason we use the contact regulation thermography, which uses this probe, that's why I'm in this room, and we use this gentle probe, which you just literally apply to all the areas of the body. It's 128 points that it tests. I'm going to hold this up to show you. These are all the points on the breast that it does, or all the points on the body rather, all the neck, all the dental areas, the back, and the breast. And it's a German engineered test, so it's very specific. There's certain conditions that we have to account for so that the variables are very consistent when you do the test. But the beauty of the test is we do these 128 temperature probes, or temperature points with a probe, and then you cool off in the room for 10 minutes in just your underwear. Now, of course, that's the most uncomfortable part for most people because not many people like to stand around in their underwear. But what happens when you do that is your body is now accounting for the stress of the coolness, and it has to regulate the temperature. And should everything be ideal in your body, it'll give us this beautiful graph of an ideal CRT. And this is based upon the temperature readings. So you have to be a little bit more of an investigator to understand it. There's no doubt. But what we like to do when we do our reviews is allow you to record it, allow you to really hear it and see it, and then re-listen to it. Typically with clients, we ask them to do this once a year as a good baseline. And there's 3 things you can really get from doing the CRT, and we're going to talk about those in a second. But the reason for this test that I like better than the picture is that your body's under the condition of stress, and you want to know how well the body handles that stress. And the stress that we're asking it to be under is simply the stress of a temperature change. And temperature is the first thing in the body that starts to begin to shift as the body's trying to compensate for something. And the first thing it'll do is it first overcompensates. It's called hyperregulation. And then after that goes on for a while and the body doesn't accommodate, then it starts to do hyporegulation, beginning not to respond. And then you get to a position where it doesn't respond at all. It's called rigid or blocked regulation, right? And in a muscle test, y'all have seen that in regards to what a blocked regulation feels like in the muscle test. Well, this is an assessment of regulation, quantitative assessment. The company that started this, IDM, which is the brand we use, there's a couple others out there. Alpha does it as well. And as long as the practitioner understands how to read it, it's a very valid test. So did you hear what I said? as long as the practitioner knows how to read it, it's a very valid test. Hi, Judith. I'm so glad you're watching. I don't know who else is watching, but I just am so happy Judith is watching about the CRT. If you don't know Judith, you need to know her. Her eyebrow work, bar none the best. Anyway, so your breast and your whole body are assessed, not just your breast. So it's a full body assessment. It does every single tooth. It does 13 points on your breast, and we look at every single organ and tissue and gland is assessed throughout this. And it also organizes for us in a very structured way where to start therapy. And it also assesses for us how fast to go. And that's the three things that we really get out of the CRT. So number one is, how well does my body compensate? Does it make all the temperature on my jaw rise in temperature on the second readings versus the first readings? Because that's how proper regulation occurs. Your body should keep the heat up in your head and cool off the rest of the body, because the brain always has to remain warm. And the head should be about 1 degree warmer in Celsius than the rest of the body. So that's exactly what this does. We have to do it in the morning. It has to be done before noon. There's all these parameters to make sure all the variables are constant, so that as we do the test, we can really see, hi Fran, I'm glad you love your CRT. So we can really see what the difference is between the first readings and the second readings, because the difference between the first readings and the second readings, it should be ideally a 0.5 degree to a full degree in temperature. That's proper regulation. If it regulates more than that, if it's over 1 degree in temperature, then the body is called hyperregulation, and that's a sign of allergy and toxicity. And if it underregulates at about less than a 0.5 degree, that's called hypo, or beginning not to respond. And if the two temperature changes are exactly the same, the two temperature readings, rather, if there's no change, then that's called rigid regulation. And the longer you have rigid regulation and the more you have it, the easier it is for disease to set in, because it's the body's lack of compensation. And when you begin to not compensate for our stressors, that's when the body is starting to fail. And then and only then will blood start to change. So understand that this is one of the most sensitive tests that there is on the planet in regards to looking at your health. And it's a systemic, whole body, systematic, comes up with an incredible graph form to really educate the practitioner where to start therapy, how fast to move therapy, is the body ready for invasive therapies. We often ask people to go do hydrocolon therapy, go see acupuncturists, go to the chiropractor, go do neural therapies with a couple of the docs that we work with, go do some IV therapies. Well, some of that can be considered invasive therapy, and we want to know if the body's set for that. Some clients walk in and go, I want to go fast and hard. Well, perhaps your body wants to go slow. Slow is sometimes better. I know it's hard for you to hear me say that coming from my mouth, but it's true. Sometimes slow is better, because you gotta always respect the laws of the body. And why I love the CRT is it's a quantitative assessment of the full body's regulation under the conditions of getting up in the morning, easy breezy, come in, take the temperature, stand in the room for 10 minutes, cool off. Oh my gosh, how much now that I take the temperatures, how much have my temperatures changed? And was it appropriate regulation? If it's not, then where? We can look at meridian themes on this as well. So the three things we get from the CRT is, one, how well does the body regulate? And is the body chaos compensating? We're all going to have chaos, but we want harmony. So if there's a little bit of chaos, we at least want the body to reduce the chaos under the conditions of stress. If not, again, lack of regulation. Thank you, Lisa. I think it's a great topic too. One of my favorite things. I could probably talk for an hour, but I'm going to try to keep it to 5 minutes. So the CRT, number one, tells you how well you regulate, how well your body compensates, and is there compensation? Is there chaos, and does it reduce? And is it better? Is the chaos more in the head, or is the chaos more in the body? And does the chaos rise? And it also tells us where to start therapy. And the two of the most important points that we do on the CRT are right here and right here. So those of you who have watched my other videos, you know that these are really important points. And honestly, this is the test that let me understand how important the lymphatics were. Because for years, about 3 or 4 years, I did this test. And I always knew to start therapies in the head if it was on the right side, the second reading was hotter, then I would start in the head. If the left termini for the lymph was the hotter reading, then I'd start all therapies in the body. But I did not know that these were the termini for the lymph when I learned CRT. I didn't know anything about lymph except that lymph were tested on this, and the lymph was a toxic waste dump. But I didn't know about lymphatic drainage. I was not trained yet at that time. But what I found was with the CRTs, we helped people in a lot of other ways, and we were struggling with the lymph, actually making a shift with it. And so that's when we found the technology and our amazing trainer, Desiree Despong from New Zealand, who's taught us everything, who I continue to learn from, and I continue to look for other I have found many other teachers with fascia as well. And we bring all that information together now with the lymph. But this is the test that I knew how important the lymph was because of this. And when I got trained in lymph, it made a ton of sense that these became the two most important points, not only for the lymph, for where to start therapy, because that's how important lymph is. Okay, so number one, how do I regulate? Number two, where do I start my therapy? And number three, how fast do we go? Can the body handle invasive therapy? Now, I am not a doctor, but this is an FDA-approved breast cancer detection device. FDA-approved breast cancer detection device. Why don't we use it over the mammogram? I will speak nothing about that. You can make all your guesses as to why. But the CRT, if I was a medical doctor, I could use this in lieu of the mammogram and tell you to come and get it. There are lots more doctors now than 15 years ago when we started doing CRTs that are much more on board with this. And if they aren't, you know, a lot of my clients ask me, oh, should I take it to my doctor? And I used to say no because they're not going to understand it. But now I've changed my tune, because I think it's important to educate, you know, and let them know, hey, there's another way. I know you want me to get yearly breast exams beyond my self exams. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what I do every year. And year in, year out, if you keep showing this to them, they're going to start to wake up and see what's going on. I had one client tell me the other day that she's been doing this for about 4 or 5 years, and her doctor was very insistent that she do mammograms, and she wasn't really happy with this. And this year, when she took it and said, no, I just did my CRT, her doctor reported to her, you know what, that's really becoming a golden standard in the industry, so I'm totally okay with it now. You know, we're on the cutting edge. Those of you that are watching this, those of you that watch many of my colleagues, we're absolutely on the cutting edge of healthcare, and you're going to learn things at True Wellness and with our colleagues that are light years ahead of what so many other people in functional medicine, integrative medicine, alternative medicine, complementary medicine, changing it all, folks. Let's call it foundational medicine instead of even bioregulatory medicine, because it should be the foundation of health. Blood work is the last thing that's going to change. By the time a mammogram finds a breast lump or a tumor, it's often too late. It can't detect very small calcifications. And bottom line is, even if there is a question on the mammogram, what do? They do an ultrasound. They verify it. If on this we feel like there's a cancerous terrain, which is a word that we use here about the environment, if the environment is conducive to looking at a cancerous terrain on the CRT, then we just say, okay, go ask your doctor to do an ultrasound, because you still need an ultrasound and a biopsy as an absolute indicator for breast cancer. Even a mammogram won't work, but this can detect a breast cancer terrain. And so what are your questions about CRTs, if you have any? Hi, Mary Jean. Hi, everybody. Because CRT is one of the basic tests that we do here. We don't do it with everybody, in all honesty. We do it either when we get stuck. If you're here for a long week, you know, you're coming from a long distance, we want to do the most amount of assessments that we possibly can. But oftentimes we do it for folks that really just want to use it as an alternative for the mammograms, because they've been working with us for a while. They're healthy. We never really needed to do this test because everything just went glowingly well. But they want to do this as a baseline. And it's always good to get a baseline. And depending on your age, you might only need to do one every 2 to 3 years. And both men and women, of course, can do this. And children over the age of about 15. Under that, the data just isn't there. So I implore you, next month in a couple weeks is the breast cancer month of October. I know a lot of folks are me talking about the breast and if you're getting your mammogram. And now I pray that we've educated you a little bit about your alternatives and what you can do in regards to an alternative to a breast cancer assessment in the CRT. So what if you see areas that look off in the breast? Good question. So, off, listen, Linda, nobody looks like this because nobody lives in a bubble. This isn't ideal. When you look at your blood ranges in a blood lab, there are ideal settings. When I see something off in a breast, what that means for me is instead of the points all looking like this, where they should look like little harps, okay? And the coldest points on your whole body should be your nipples because they're the most exterior from the body. So, of course, they should be the coldest. But if they don't look like that, if they've got a lot of like stair steps, then it's indication that there's some inflammation. Now, when I look at the breast meridian, we have the maxillary sinuses. It travels down to the thyroid, it goes down through the breast, then it goes over to the stomach, down to the pancreas, and then it goes over to the uterus and the ovaries. So that's our stomach meridian, okay? So if I'm concerned about the breast, I'm gonna look upstream and I'm gonna look at the uterus, the ovaries, the thyroid, the maxillary sinuses, and I'm gonna see how well they regulate. If a breast point warms, that's what I don't like. Now, if a breast point warms and there's a lot of inflammation in the body, and the whole meridian is warming, including the control point, the stomach, the thyroid is regulating the opposite of how it should, there's enough people rowing in the boat. That's my little analogy. I was a crew member. I rowed in college, and I absolutely love rowing. And so I use that analogy a lot. If you look at a cruise shell, there's 8 people to make the cruise shell work to row, and then you have the coxswain. So there's really 9, but we'll talk about 8. If there's 8 people that need to make that boat go fast, and it's a big, heavy cruise shell, and you only have 2, it's not going to go very fast. If you have 4, it's going to go a little bit. If you have 6, you're headed in the right direction. You're headed in that direction of going fast. And what we want to do is kick some of those people out of the boat and make sure that you're going in the opposite direction. If I find that there's 5 or 6 people rowing in the boat, then we're going to take some action, whatever the CRT is indicative of saying, hey, here's some therapies that you could try, here's a meridian that's out of balance, here's the liver that might need some work, or whatever the case may be. We set up a protocol from this. Then we'll retest in about 2 to 3 months. If I'm really concerned, which in 15 years of doing this, there's been 3 times that I've been concerned of breast cancer, and I've asked them to go to their medical doctor, get a prescription to do an ultrasound, and sure enough, we found cancer 3 times. So we were able to, all 3 of those clients, I think 1 actually did radiation as well, but the rest of them did lumpectomies, and we continued to do all the other ancillary therapies around that. They continued to change their terrain. They, of course, were working with their oncologist as well in whatever way they decided to work with their oncologist. And then we retest and we make sure that improves. And honestly, that's the best part of the CRT for me. I feel awesome, right? I've been doing this for 20 years. And I absolutely get younger every year. Maybe not, I don't look at it at the end of my evening, but I feel younger. And when I look at my before and after pictures, even though my husband says I don't look younger, I know I look younger than when I was 23. Maybe not than before I had Silas, but definitely when I was 23. And, when I watch my CRTs, mine in particular, because, I'm my first patient, but when I watch my CRTs, they actually get better year in and year out. And I started doing CRTs like 14 years ago. So I have one from, maybe it was 2007. So that maybe isn't 14. It's close, right? 12 years ago. My first CRT 12 years ago was a disaster. Now here's the thing. I felt great. I had no symptoms. That's it. I didn't have any symptoms, but I wanted to do a CRT. And when I started to read through it with the practitioner, he wasn't even halfway through, and I'm like, oh my God, how can I fix all that? That's a ton to fix. He goes, but look at it. If you did blood work, your blood work's going to look awesome. You do a CRT, it tells you where the problems are before there becomes problems, so you know what to clean up. Oh my God, it's the perfect for a type A personality that loves to clean stuff up before it gets dirty. I love the idea of that with a CRT because I'm well ahead of the game. My blood work has always looked awesome. Every time I pull it, they go, oh my gosh, you're the healthiest person I've ever seen. Well, yeah, because I don't wait for blood to go bad. I do stuff preventatively to make sure my blood never goes bad. So if you haven't gotten your CRT, make sure you do. The pricing is on our website. It takes an hour to administer. It takes me about a half hour to read it. If you have multiple CRTs, as I review them, it does take me a little bit longer the more you do, because I'm comparing all of them and I'm looking at your patterns and we're making sure that the puzzle pieces are all going in the right direction. So I love that all you guys are so excited about looking for an alternative to breast cancer. Please go ahead and share this video. CRT is contact regulation thermography. It's an alternative to breast cancer. We use a temperature probe applied to your skin in 128 points all over your body, allowing you to get a graphical form, allowing you to really, with your practitioner, set up a great protocol to ensure your health. And if you are going through more of a chronic illness, it's also a great thing for your practitioner to systematically come up with a protocol that your body is looking for to know what the underlying issues are for sure, but it also sets you up to know how fast to move and where to go. So please share this video with your friends that are looking for alternatives to mammograms. Let's educate them. When you get your CRT, please share it with your doctor. Let them know, even if they don't know what it is, let them be educated about that, because we know that that mammogram is not the greatest test. It gives a lot of false positives, and further investigation, it makes a lot of people worry, and it's only looking at the breast, and we aren't a compartment. We are one body from head to toe, spirit, mind. We did a talk about this a few weeks ago. Spirit, mind, and emotions, they're all connected. The CRT accounts for that. Your whole body is assessed. There's emotional components that are seen in this for the skilled practitioner with meridian themes. You can really understand so much about the person, and it gives you a great baseline to put you in control of your health. I thank you all so much. I look forward to it. Let me know what your questions are. I'll answer any questions that you have about CRT. And next week, we're going to talk about 5G and what's going to happen with 5G and how you can help prevent your household from being obsessed or, what's the word I'm looking for, like taken over by the 5G as much as we can. Have a great night.